So we're back with Josh, who will show us now some pictures and videos from what he's seen in Irpin.
All right. To set the scene a little bit, here is the bridge that I was talking about.
Yeah, I think everyone has seen it. Das ist die Brücke, von der er gesprochen hat, die eigentlich jeder gesehen hat.
This has definitely been one of the more infamous images of the war. So in the background, you may see that there's this cloud of smoke. That was there the whole day when I was there. I'm not positive, but that might have been from the Russians blowing up some munition depot. I'm not sure about that, but that might have been what it was from. But anyway, so the fighting was off in that direction, and the whole day when I was there several days ago, you had that black cloud of smoke in the background. Then you had people go for it.
So do we look in the direction of Kiev or is Kiev behind us?
Kiev is behind us.
Okay, also Kiew ist auf dem Bild hinter uns. Wir schauen raus in Richtung Irpin und in Richtung Russe und diese schwarze Rauchwolke, sagte, die war die ganze Zeit da und möglicherweise haben die Russen dort ein Munitionsdepot zerstört. Wurde davon gesprochen. Okay, please continue.
All right, so down beside the bridge in this photo, you might, and I'll show you better photos closer up, you might be able to make out that there are people walking across a makeshift bridge. So the people are coming from the main area of Irpin. They're fleeing the fighting in the direction of Kiev, and they're trying to make it across this crossing. And then on the other side of the crossing, there are ambulances and trucks and vans waiting to pick them up.
That's interesting because somehow in my mind they were fleeing in the other direction. So in this regard, you actually put this famous scene into perspective. Also sagt, was man unten auf dem Bild kann man Menschen sehen und die kommen tatsächlich alle aus Irpin und wollen nach Kiew rein und sozusagen hinter seiner Perspektive sind dann Krankenwagen und so weiter, um die Leute zu versorgen und abzuholen. Ich persönlich dachte immer, wenn die Leute aus Irpin fliehen, dachte ich irgendwie in meinem Kopf, flohen die nicht in Richtung Kiew. Von daher finde ich das ganz interessant, dass es uns hier auch diese Perspektive irgendwo einordnet. Please continue.
The only people who were going in the other direction were soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers, and I didn't see any at the time, some bold journalists who may have been too bold, because the first journalist or two journalists to get killed and injured, they, according to the hospital bed interview that one of them gave, they had just passed this bridge and not too long after that they were ambushed.
Also die einzigen, die über die Brücke in eine andere Richtung gegangen sind, waren Soldaten und die vereinzelten übermutigen Journalisten, und er meinte, möglicherweise waren sie ein bisschen zu mutig, denn die ersten beiden, die getötet und verletzt wurden, die sind hier über die Brücke gegangen und nach dem Interview, das der Verletzte gegeben hat, sind sie direkt danach eigentlich gleich wohl verletzt worden, also nicht weit von der Brücke entfernt. Please continue.
All right, here's another single image. Now we're down at water bridge level, but we're turned around. So you're looking at soldiers, and at this point, I'm not sure what they were up to, but they're heading in the direction of refugees in this photo. And this is just one of my favorite shots of mine from there. It was almost apocalyptic, where you had this destroyed, I think it was a van that was upside down and kind of jutting into the water, and that was there the whole time as all these people were trying to escape and they were being evacuated.
Yeah, it's like the set of a movie.
I had multiple commenters naming different movies that they thought it reminded them of. Yeah.
Also er findet, das ist eines der interessantesten Fotos, die er gemacht hat. Dieses Mal ist jetzt die Perspektive umgedreht. Wir schauen in Richtung Kiew und auf dem Bild sind Soldaten, die in diese Richtung laufen. Please.
Here's a look at some of the refugees crossing the bridge. they're going in the same direction as the soldiers that you just saw. All the refugees are heading in this direction. There are no refugees heading in the other direction. And this shot is fairly representative of what I was seeing. I was seeing a lot of elderly people, including elderly people could barely walk. And I was seeing pets being evacuated, people bringing their dogs. I've got photos of cats being carried in cat boxes.
Also das sind jetzt Flüchtlinge und die wieder in Richtung Kiew gehen, und das ist halt ziemlich repräsentativ von dem, was er so gesehen hat. Viele alte Leute, teilweise kaum noch fähig zu gehen und sehr häufig mit Haustieren, Hunde, Katzen, die in Transportboxen getragen wurden und so weiter. Yes?
A lot of elderly people needed help with crossing, like they would need a hand. Even once in a while, I would reach out a hand, and sometimes some press would help people walk a little bit across the bridge. Here's a journalist in the background. There were lots and lots of journalists staged there at the time. Here's
Also
oh, go for it.
viele ältere Leute brauchten Hilfe, und wie man es da gesehen hat, und er meinte, er selber und andere Journalisten haben auch immer wieder eine Hand gereicht, um den älteren Leuten zu helfen. Please, continue.
Here's one of the numerous people I saw being carried across that bridge and carried across that area on a stretcher. This man was in better condition than probably most of the people who were on those stretchers. He was actually able to sit up a little bit and have a look at me here in this shot.
Also viele waren Verwundete, und dieser Verwundete war noch in einer der besseren Zustände, denn er war immerhin noch in der Lage, sich ein bisschen aufzurichten und ihn anzugucken.
This, I believe, is a dead body on a gurney being loaded into an ambulance or the back of a truck, which was parked in Irpin, but in the direction of Kiev on the other side of the bridge.
Hier sehen wir, weil er glaubt, das war wahrscheinlich eine Leiche. Der war wahrscheinlich verstorben, und der wird da gerade entweder in Krankenwagen oder hinten in die Ladefläche eines Vans gepackt, um ihn nach Kiew reinzubringen. Also wir sind jetzt auf der Brücke, aber auf der Kiew-Seite. Please.
Speaking of which, all in that area of Irpin, in the direction of Kiev where all these people were heading, there are just blown out buildings everywhere.
But this is kind of fascinating. Like, you see some damage downstairs at the door, because I was like about to say, it's like, I'm not religious, but seeing this burnt out wreck, and in the background you see the church basically untouched, but then I see, it seems like the entrance door of the church was damaged.
The church was more damaged than I could show in the photos. It was hard. The sun was right in back of the church. It was hard for me to get good shots of it, although I do have some video footage where it shows you there are several windows that were destroyed in the church, and everything around the church is just wrecked. So like here, this is the same car, just from a different vantage point.
Also ich meinte, das hätte geradezu fast was, eine religiöse Unterbedeutung. Wenn ich irgendwie gläubig wäre, würde ich sagen, weil das Auto komplettes Wrack ist und ausgebrannt und die Kirche in gutem Zustand zu sein scheint. Aber er meinte, die Kirche war deutlich schwerer beschädigt, und er konnte es nur wegen des Lichtes nicht gut zeigen. Und hier sehen wir die Perspektive des Autos, dasselbe Auto aus einer anderen Perspektive. Please.
I'm not sure what building this was, but I think it was part of the church complex. And if you look closely, you can see that there's some church painting, some mural on it. And it's basically adjacent to the church.
Also das Gebäude ist direkt neben der Kirche. Er weiß nicht, ob es direkt was das ist, aber er glaubt, es gehörte zur Kirche. Und wenn man genau hinguckt, sieht man Bilder, so Wandmalereien, die in kirchlichem Zusammenhang sind.
I'm not sure if I posted I have video footage of it that's on my YouTube channel, but basically all the buildings on that street, on the that's basically the beginning of Irpin on the Kiev side. Just building after building over there had struck, broken windows. Some look really, really damaged or destroyed.
Do you know, when we see the bridge, as we see the bridge again, do you know if it was blown up by the Ukrainians or if it was an attack by the Russians? Weißt du, ob die Russen die Brücke gesprengt haben, wo wir sie wieder sehen, oder ob das von den Ukrainern gesprengt wurde?
I do not know, and I never in my reporting made a mention of that, because to me it's plausible that it could have been by either one. The Ukrainian, my first gut reaction when I saw it was that I kind of guessed that the Ukrainians did it, because they've been blowing out bridges to stop tanks and stop Russian troops from advancing. But it looks like the area got shelled really hard, or I don't know what came in there. So maybe the Russians fired on it accidentally. I don't know. That information might be out there, but I'm not aware of it.
But as you know, my channel is about military topics, so obviously a lot of the questions will be somewhat related to that. Also ich habe ihn gefragt, ob er zufällig weiß, was die Brücke, ob die gesprengt wurde oder beschossen wurde, obwohl ich das, glaube ich, schon übersetzt hatte, und er meinte, nee, er weiß es nicht. Er ist auch gar nicht auf die Idee gekommen zu fragen. Seiner Meinung nach ist beides möglich, und da die Gegend schwer beschädigt war, wodurch weiß er nicht, ob Luftangriff oder Artillerie, würde es naheliegen, dass es vielleicht auch die Russen waren, aber allerdings sprengen die Ukrainer ja massiv Brücken, um Panzer zu stoppen. Please continue.
On that note, I probably have some images from within Kiev, within the city, that would be of interest to you, and trying to gauge why certain places got struck.
As we are here, I got another question. Und zwar, wo wir jetzt schon hier sind, habe ich noch eine andere Frage. In der Nähe ist ja die Leiche des Journalisten geborgen worden. Und ich habe gesehen, dass du ein Video gemacht hast. Wie ist es möglich, dass du das beobachtet hast? Wo waren die Russen zu dem Zeitpunkt? Oder ist es, wo wir jetzt drüber gesprochen haben, ist es auf dieser Seite der Brücke, also auf der Kiew-Seite der Brücke, und deswegen, wo die Leiche bereits dorthin gebracht wurde? Now, as I see the pictures of the bridge, I wondered when I saw the video you posted, where the body of the journalist is being hauled into a car, and I wondered where the Russians were in that video, how you could have gotten so close. But I guess after hearing you talk, it was probably after his body was brought over that makeshift footbridge and when he was loaded on the Kiev side. Is that correct?
Essentially correct. His body was moved farther than that. So it's not, his body wasn't moved to a location in Irpin on that street where the ambulances were, where I saw bodies being loaded. His body was moved all the way into Kiev. And if you recall that map, how we're looking on the map, how there was one road that leads through forests on both sides to take you back and forth between Kiev and Irpin. His body had to have been taken all the way across that road to this little staging point that was a transit center for refugees, as well as a checkpoint, and that's in Kiev proper. And that's where I got stopped. That on that day, the day that the first journalist, the first American journalist, was killed, I was trying to go right back to Irpin, and I was trying to go farther. I was basically trying to go to where he was killed, and I couldn't even get into Irpin. I got stopped at the checkpoint, turned away, said no. The policeman in checkpoint said there's fighting over there. You can't go any farther. Although they did let one or two press cars in, so I didn't have the right connections or the right clearance. But in retrospect, I'm glad I didn't go any farther that day.
Yeah, I see.
So when I saw, and this is Brent Renaud, the first American journalist to be killed there. When I saw his body lying, it was lying beside a checkpoint in Kiev on the road that leads to Irpin.
Also er sagt, die Leiche, und den Namen sollte man natürlich auch nennen, das war Brent Renaud. Er Weil ich hatte ursprünglich gedacht, der hätte irgendwie in der Nähe der Leiche sei er gewesen. Und da lag natürlich die Frage nahe, was ist aus den Russen geworden unterdessen? Aber nein, er hat es gefilmt, weiter zurückliegend in Richtung Kiew, wo eben der Körper, die Leiche von Brent Renault inzwischen hingebracht wurde. Und er selber wollte weiter nach Irpin rein, aber sie haben ihn nicht reingelassen, weil also die Checkpoints haben sie ihn umgedreht, weil dort Gefechte stattfanden. Allerdings wurden andere Journalisten durchgelassen und er meinte, die hatten möglicherweise bessere Connections oder eine höhere Freigabe, aber inzwischen ist er ganz froh, dass er dort aufgehalten wurde. Please continue.
All right, so I switched over to my article about the killing of Brent Renault, and this is, if you're all right with me showing it, I'm not showing any of the graphic parts, but
yeah, some graphic parts are unavoidable in a channel like this, but I try to keep it to a minimum. But if it's not like injuries, bodies, or whatever, gore, then please.
I'm not showing any gore here.
Yeah.
His body is right here, lying underneath this leopard-style print blanket. And this, like I said, was beside a checkpoint in Kiev on the road that leads to Irpin. And what got pretty much glossed over by everyone is that there was a second body lying there. There's a body under this blanket that could have been his driver. I don't know. I never got any clarification about whose body that was. But Brent Renault's body was loaded into the vehicle that takes away the dead bodies along with this one.
Mhm.
And I've got a shot of that right here.
Also wir sehen den Körper von Brent Renault, er hat die Fotos gemacht an einem Checkpoint weiter drin. Und wer die zweite Leiche war, die man hinter dem Körper unter diesem Leopardenmuster sieht, weiß er nicht. Er vermutet, dass es möglicherweise sein Fahrer war, aber er konnte das nie aufklären. Und hier sehen wir, wie er eingeladen wird.
And then also, it's not a zoom in, but it's a policeman at that checkpoint and refugee staging area holding a camera and press badge that I believe are Brent Renault's.
Hier können wir sehen, wie ein Polizei.
That's what they told us. That's what they told us.
Yeah, it looks like the one we saw on TV and in the media, the press badge.
I didn't get a good shot of the actual badge, but that's what they told us.
Highly symbolic picture. Also hier sehen wir, wo er sagt, ist ein Polizist, der die Kamera und den Presseausweis hält. Er vermutet zumindest, dass er das war. Er hat kein gutes Bild bekommen.
This might be of interest to you because it's topical for your channel. There were bullet cases lying around on the ground at that refugee staging area. The same, basically just across the street from where Brent Renault's body was lying. And why, I'm not sure. At that point, I wasn't aware of there being any fighting there.
Mhm. Also er sagt hier, diese Patronenhülsen lagen an diesem Checkpoint rum. Und warum, kann er nicht sagen. Ihm ist nicht bekannt, dass zu diesem Zeitpunkt irgendwie Gefechte stattfanden. Please, continue.
I think I've shown you, I have way more photos than this, but in terms of what's on my Instagram, I think I've shown you.
Yeah.
Your pin. Oh, this right here. And just so you're clear, the soldiers gave me permission to photograph them like that. They just moved up their, whatever you call those, bandana type things. So this is basically the city limits where you cross from Kiev into Irpin. We are looking in the Irpin direction and the soldiers are basically looking in the Kiev direction.
So this, okay.
Yeah.
Also hier sehen wir zwei Soldaten, er hat um Erlaubnis gefragt und die haben nur diese Bandana, glaube ich, heißen das, diesen Gesichtsschutz hochgezogen. Und das ist einer der letzten Checkpoints am Stadtrand in Richtung Irpin, wobei in Irpin noch selber weitere sein sollten. Also das ist jetzt, was Kiew angeht, der letzte Checkpoint, wenn ich ihn richtig verstanden habe. Und das heißt, wir sehen die Rückseite dieses Checkpoints, was zum Beispiel erklärt, warum diese Kanister da sind. Die hatten mich sofort irritiert, weil mir nicht klar war, warum man Kanister mit egal welcher Flüssigkeit in Richtung Feind hinstellt. Aber das erklärt es dann. Please continue.
I don't know if you want to move on from
Yeah,
Irpin.
probably I should ask more questions, then we can come back to some pictures or videos later. And for the viewers, I will obviously link your Instagram and your YouTube in the description so they can see your channel and follow you and see the interesting pictures you took by themselves. And we can probably only show a fraction of it. Also ich werde natürlich seinen YouTube-Kanal und sein Instagram in die Beschreibung packen, damit Sie sich das anschauen können und selber die Bilder anschauen können und seine Arbeit beobachten können. Und wenn Sie nett sind, geben Sie ihm natürlich auch ein Follow. Und dann können Sie sehen, was er alles noch so gemacht hat. Wir machen jetzt mal mit den Fragen weiter. Also wie war der Verkehr in der Stadt und Kontrollen hatten wir schon ein bisschen. Was kann man sich das irgendwie vorstellen? Alle 200 Meter eine Kontrolle oder hast du da irgendein Muster drin erkannt? So how was the traffic inside of the city? And with the checkpoints, how often were they? Was it like every 200 meters, every 500? Or did you recognize some kind of pattern in it? Like maybe every crossroads, something like this. Did you recognize any pattern in that?
I wasn't looking out for patterns with the checkpoints in Kiev other than they were just very frequent. You just can't drop. Although it's, you know what, it's kind of a mischaracterization for me to just say that there are a bunch of checkpoints, because it's not that they're just a bunch. It wasn't every 200 meters of checkpoints, but there were barricades at almost every intersection, and you need to weave your way through them. So I don't have the best shots. There are tons of them. I probably have much better photos sitting on my phone, but there are those hedgehogs, these things that have now become pretty famous in tons of photos, and you just have all kinds of barricades everywhere. Where I think here are some of the more normal looking ones: sandbags, cinder blocks, but you had trams as barricades, buses. Here we go. Here's not the best shot, but they use buses as barricades, tires.
That's almost reminiscent of Berlin when you see it in 1945, like train cars.
Train cars, yeah, freight train.
Like trams, street railway. I don't know. Tram is, I think, the English word.
Yeah, tram. They have tram.
Buses.
They have tram barricades in Kiev also.
Interesting. Also er sagt so, irgendwie ein Muster hat er nicht erkannt, hat er natürlich auch nicht drauf geachtet und Checkpoint ist wahrscheinlich auch der falsche Begriff. Wir reden hier wohl eher, wären wahrscheinlich Befestigungen zu sagen und die waren überall und er hat uns da ein paar Bilder gezeigt, mal eher normale, nur mit Betonblöcken und diesen heißen die tschechische Igel, glaube ich, also diese Panzersperren, die wir alle kennen, schon eben auch aus der Tschechoslowakei von 1938 und dann hat er Beispiele gezeigt, wo sie Busse und Eisenbahnwaggons zur Blockade benutzen. Now, as we already talk about fortifications, the problem having you in this channel probably is that your military background is almost non-existent. So asking you too many details there might not lead to much, but obviously my audience will be much more interested in that. So were you able to judge, did you in your mind, were they proficient, were they well made, or did it appear incompetent? Also für den Kanal ist es natürlich interessanter, wenn wir auch ein bisschen aufs Militärische eingehen, auch wenn Josh meines Wissens keinerlei militärischen Hintergrund hat. Da frage ich ihn jetzt, wenn wir schon über die Barrikaden reden, ob er da irgendwie sagen kann, wie professionell die waren, ob er sich eine Bewertung zutraut, wie zusammengestümpert die waren oder ob die professionell aussahen. Please.
I'm no proper judge of that. But one thing that was was clear is that over the 4+ days that I spent in Kiev, there were more and more layers being added to the barricades, and locations that didn't have barricades were getting barricades. And I even saw trenches being dug, and at the Maidan, I saw a bunch of stuff being put up, and just every day, everything would look a little more fortified. That the barricades would be a little more evident, a little more apparent.
And of course, they would go in depth. So it's not like they build one ring. If you say Maidan is basically the center of the city, if I'm informed correctly. So they would expand the fortification throughout the city, not just a ring around.
Well, by the time I arrived there, which was 10 days into the war, something like that, there already were barricades spread out all over the city. But a lot of them weren't so reinforced. Like, for instance, I had for initial photo, like here, these, you just drive, you just weave your way through them, and there isn't some huge thing blocking the road like a bus or a train. But this barricade, for instance, probably doesn't look like that now. They've probably added a lot more sandbags, hedgehogs, or who knows what to it. That was just the impression that I was getting over my time there, that they were adding to all the barricades or setting up new ones.
Also was er sagt, während er dort war, hat sich permanent die Stadt weiter befestigt. Wo am ersten Tag noch nichts war, war am letzten Tag auf einmal Befestigungen aufgebaut. Und das, was er uns gezeigt hat, was noch relativ unspektakulär aussieht, sagt er, dass das wahrscheinlich inzwischen schon viel martialischer, viel besser ausgebaut ist. Überall wurden Gräben gegraben, also die gesamte Stadt werden Verteidigungslinien aufgebaut. Ich habe ihn gefragt, ob das nur am Stadtrand ist oder, weil ich hab hier in dem Kanal, bin ich schon auf den Zweiten Bergkarabach-Krieg eingegangen, wo beispielsweise mir aufgefallen ist, dass die Armenier nur eine Verteidigungslinie zu haben schienen. Keinerlei Verteidigung in die Tiefe, sie 30 Jahre verschwendet haben und nicht irgendwie nach hinten gestaffelte Ersatzlinien sozusagen aufgebaut haben, auf diese zurückfallen können. Und hier wird es offensichtlich fundamental anders gemacht. Er spricht davon, dass am Maidan Befestigungen aufgebaut wurden und der liegt ziemlich im Zentrum der Stadt, wenn ich nicht falsch liege. Also da scheint sich Kiew wirklich relativ oder ziemlich kompetent und entschlossen darauf vorzubereiten. That was already the answer to my next question. Maybe we should, as we see, stop it here for the second video, as we are two cheap bastards, and take a quick break and continue with the third one if you're fine with that.
Yeah, by the way, I'm going through photos on my phone right now, and I'm seeing, well, we've already discussed it, but yeah, tires, buses, tractors, not taking up the whole street, but tractors blocking about half the street. Yeah, just all kinds of stuff. Like random metal scraps, like all kinds of stuff. And oh, sorry, go for it.
If you want to, you could add those pictures with some military background into a Dropbox folder and share it to me, and I could go through them in an extra video, because I'm pretty sure that would be really interesting to my special audience to see more details which you haven't thought about. As said, all under your decision what you think is necessary for military security. Maybe we should talk about some of them before, because like here, for instance, I see the picture in the center. Like this fortification is fairly simple, but for instance, if you had taken a picture of a hidden firing slot that could fire at soldiers coming that way, but isn't visible from one side, but from the other, if we discuss that in a video, somebody might actually see it and report it, and that might get people killed or get the wrong people killed, if I want to say so cynically. So maybe we could do that, that you, if you want to, that you share some for me, and we could go through the picture. I can go through the pictures on my channel with that.
I can send them all to you and you can.
Okay, so let's take a short break. Ich habe ihm gesagt, weil wir ja beide Geizhälter sind, laufen die 40 Minuten gleich wieder ab. Wir beenden hier das zweite Video. Es wird gleich ein drittes geben. Und ich habe mit ihm gesprochen, dass er mir einen Dropbox-Ordner bereitstellt mit seinen Aufnahmen der Befestigung und was er so hat. Denn dann können wir vielleicht ein eigenes Video darüber machen. Und es könnte ja ganz interessant sein, dass wir uns die Befestigung anschauen, zumindest soweit es keine militärischen Geheimnisse preisgibt. Denn ich möchte nicht, um hier ein paar Views extra zu bekommen, eine versteckte Stellung zeigen, die dann die falschen Leute, durch die dann die falschen Leute getötet werden, weil der Aggressor sieht, von wo aus er hätte angegriffen werden können. Okay, so thank you and see you in a bit.
All right. So you stopped the recording, right?